Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm continuing with my ongoing original character series where I go through all of my original characters or OCs and just kind of spend some time talking about them. So today we've got Sora. He is one of my most recently created characters and he is actually the same species as two of my other OCs, Yukiro and Shiro. So Yukiro, I had already done his video, and then for Shiro, I'm hoping to be able to get around to filming and editing his video sometime in the next few weeks, maybe 1 or 2 months. We'll see how things go. So for Sora, I feel like before we begin talking about him, I have to give kind of a backstory of where Yukiro and Shiro come from, because Yukiro was actually the first character I created out of this species. And Yukiro was actually created for a role play and art group I had joined on DeviantArt a few years back. And the whole story with that art group was that there was this human and demon war. So basically, in the future, humans and demons are living alongside each other in the same world. And so there was a lot of tension and hatred between the two species. And so there was a war that broke out, and the roleplay group kind of took on the aftermath of this war. And so kind of the background for their species was that way back when the human and demon war was still going on, this species lived in the snowy, remote mountains of Hokkaido. And I don't think I've ever shown their demon form. Usually I just draw them in their human form because it's more fun for me. But I will show on screen kind of what they look like in their demon form. They're kind of these tiny, I call them like goat demons, but they're really not. That was just a name that I joked around with and it just stuck. But basically they're kind of like these half human looking, half furry goat hoofed creature. So basically this tiny demon species that lived in Hokkaido, and they were a very small numbered species, and basically they lived in close proximity to a human village. And given the harsh environment, the humans and this demon species actually worked together in harmony in order to help each other kind of survive and make the most out of the environment that they were living in. And so this species doesn't really have an official name, but they were called the Yama no Kami, which is Japanese for mountain god. And this was a name that was given to them by these villagers because they were essentially seen as these creatures who were very in tune with nature. And so the humans kind of gave them this name, and these demons would be able to manipulate snow and ice and water, given their elemental abilities. And so they would kind of protect these villagers from the snow and essentially the elements. And in exchange, these humans would kind of give them food offerings and celebrations just to express their gratitude and appreciation for these demons and helping them survive the snowy, harsh mountains. And eventually, over time, a small group of, I guess, human militants, keep in mind that at this time the human-demon war is still going on, and so this group of human militants kind of stumble upon this collaboration between humans and demons in their midst of trying to secure a base in the mountains to maybe give them an advantage in the war. And so when they discover that these humans are working alongside demons, this group of militants become very outraged. They think it's completely unacceptable and disgusting that these humans are working alongside demons, because demons are terrible creatures and that's why we're at war with them and all of that. And so the human militants completely wipe out the villagers. They burn their village and essentially kill everyone. And a lot of the demons are also lost in the process. And then there are a few of them that were able to escape. And so they flee further into the mountains and really isolate themselves. And so this was kind of, I guess, the background for Yukiro and Shiro, was that they were essentially part of this original demon group that worked alongside humans, and then this tragedy happened and they had to flee to the mountains. and their species decided that they didn't want this to happen again, and so they chose to completely isolate themselves from the outside world. They don't want any contact with any other demons or any humans from that point on. And then for Yukito and Shiro, they long for that human interaction because they really miss it eventually. And so both of them do leave their species and kind of go off to the outside world. And so that's where their story takes place. For Sora, he actually comes at a much later time. And so for this species, they live hundreds of years old. And so for Sora, when he's born into this species, Yukito and Shiro have already left. And Sora doesn't really know anything about what it was like for this species to have lived with humans because that happened way before his time. And so he is born into a time when he just hears stories about when they worked with humans, but how that turned out really badly. And so that's why they are the way they are right now, living in isolation, away from the rest of the outside world and really just being with their species. And at this point, the species has decided to create kind of a hierarchy, so they come up with kind of a royal bloodline to have a designated ruler to kind of watch over the species and to protect them, and just make sure that everyone stays safe. So Sora is actually born into this royal bloodline, and he is the prince who is kind of next in line to rule this species. Unfortunately, Sora is still a teenager. He's probably equivalent to like a 17-year-old, and so he's still very young and inexperienced, very naive and immature, and he just really does not want to lead the species. He does not feel ready, and he just does not want to have that responsibility of being king whenever his father passes away. And so basically he just becomes so overwhelmed with his expected obligations that he decides to run away from home. And being the teenager that he is, he's very impulsive, so he doesn't really think ahead of time that much. And so he really runs away without giving much thought as to his next steps or what he's going to do now that he's away from his family. So he kind of goes off on a sort of adventure in discovering himself and learning more about the world around him and just everything that he's been sheltered from. And that's pretty much where we leave off with him. I didn't really use Sora for any kind of role playing, and so a lot of his story is whatever I just come up with in my mind and just headcanon. But I think eventually he will run into Shiro, who is Yukito's older brother, and it's just shocking to him because he never knew that there were others of his species who essentially ran away from their own kind. And so he meets Shiro, and Shiro is very powerful. He's kind of like my OP original character in that he is very strong and wields his water and ice abilities very well. And Sora just becomes so enamored by it because while Sora has a lot of untapped potential, he never really learned how to have full control and use of his abilities. So when he sees Shiro, he kind of sees him as a role model and eventually wants Shiro to be his mentor and kind of nags Shiro into taking him on as his disciple. And then they kind of continue on with their adventures, I guess, since Shiro's been out and about in the world and just traveling and living out his best life, which he continues to do so. And now Sora's kind of just tagging along and just kind of forcing himself onto anything that Shiro is doing, since he just sees Shiro as this incredible person that he wants to be just like. And so that's kind of where we are with Sora. And it's funny because while I don't show this on screen, after I finish drawing these characters and coloring them, I do write a little blurb about their traits and their personality. And it was just amusing because when I was trying to figure out the positive and negative traits for Sora, I actually had absolutely no issues with coming up with his negative traits because he's very spoiled, he's selfish, he's very used to getting what he wants, he's immature, he's naive, and the list could really go on and on. But I really struggled with trying to find positive traits for him outside of maybe he's just very determined, and when he wants something, he will pursue that. But other than that, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really have a lot of positive traits for him. So hopefully as I continue to develop his character and flesh things out, I will be able to think of more things. But for now, that's where we are with Sora, and that brings us to the end of our video. I hope that you guys enjoyed and are enjoying this ongoing series that I'm doing. I hope that you guys all stay safe and stay healthy, and I will see you in the next video.